Christkindl, Krampus, and Ischner Krapfel. It is time to get curious about Austria's Christmas markets.
Remember when you were a child and all you asked was why? Well, I never quite outgrew that whole quest for knowledge phase. In fact, I've made a career out of asking who, what, where, why, and how as an arts and travel journalist for the past 20 years. So, if I have an insatiable curiosity about the exciting, inspiring, beautiful world of art, architecture, and hidden history all around us, I bet you do too. This isn't your typical what to do on a vacation travel show. Oh no, this is your all-access pass to a deeper understanding of the world's great art and architecture, people and places, history, and how did they do that. So, come along on our educational journey, our field trip for grown-ups who have never quite grown up, and learn on Curious Traveler.
European Christmas markets, or the Christkindl market, is a celebration of Advent in the weeks leading up to Christmas. The very first Christmas market was held in what is now Germany back in the Middle Ages. And today, here in Austria, this beautiful tradition continues.
With inviting open-air stalls gleefully packed full of Christmas decorations and toys and presents, and of course those sugary smells of those traditional Austrian pastries. The Christmas market, or Christkindl market, or Weihnachtsmarkt, has its origins in the Holy Roman Empire, which is why you can find them in many parts of Europe, including Germany, France, and of course, Austria. So, here's what I'm curious about with Austria's Christmas markets and traditions. Why are these markets sometimes called a Christkindl market? How did this tradition start and why? Why are Christmas markets so popular in German-speaking countries? And what does Austria have to do with a famous Christmas carol? What is a Schoko Kipferl, a Kaiserschmarrn, and a Brandteigerringe?
Thank you. Thank you.
Why aren't these Christmas letters written to Santa? Why are there trumpet players on this balcony? And the most curious question of all, what the heck is a Krampus, and is it different than a Krapfen? We begin our curious journey into Austrian Christmas traditions in Vienna, although this isn't where the first Christkindl market began. The first was in what is today's Germany, back in the Middle Ages, then
that same tradition spread across the Holy Roman Empire, which of course included Austria. Fast forward to today, and one of the largest in Vienna is right here in front of City Hall.
In Vienna, there are many Christmas markets to choose from, like this one in front of Schönbrunn Palace, or this one in front of Hofburg, the Imperial Palace, or this one in front of Belvedere Palace. Yes, there are a lot of palaces here in Vienna. Then there is this one at St. Stephensplatz that literally spills over from St. Stephen's Cathedral into the surrounding streets, with heavenly and sparkly chandeliers hanging overhead. And of course, the most popular one is right back here in front of Vienna City Hall. I mean, how can you compete with an entrance like this?
It's very magical, and the lights and all the people here, so people can dance, can drink something hot, or eat chocolate or typical traditional Viennese of the cuisine.
Did someone say Linserschnitter or Karatenkuchen? Ah, you had me at Nüstern. But in this sea of tasty treats and shiny objects, Christmas markets are, of course, all about Christmas and Advent, with ornaments, Advent calendars, and Advent wreaths.
Every Sunday you have to light up one candle, and then it's Christmas. So you have 4 candles. The first Sunday of the month, you light the first candle, then the second one, the third one, until Christmas.
The Advent wreath is believed to have been started in Germany. Then the tradition spread to Austria and later to the United States. But what does the Advent wreath symbolize? Well, the circle and the evergreen branches represent God's infinite love, and the 4 candles symbolize the 4 weeks of Advent. And sometimes the 4 candles also represent hope, peace, joy, and love. But as lovely as that tradition is, here at the Christmas markets, somehow the conversation always seems to go back to those tasty treats.
Typical traditional are Christstollen, and then we have Krapfen, marmalades, especially apricots, and here in Austria we have the Marillenmarmelade.
We come mostly for food here.
Yes.
We will get back to those soon, but first it's time to get curious about more Austrian Christmas traditions in one of the towns that celebrates it best, Salzburg. Salzburg's Old Town is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and its Christmas markets are simply magical. The grandest of its markets is fittingly in front of its grandest church, the Salzburger Dom, or Salzburg Cathedral. This Baroque version was built in the 17th century, but its origins date back to the 8th century. And somewhere in between all those centuries, someone decided that this square out front was the perfect spot for a Christmas market.
Actually, all of them developed out of farmers' markets. And it was the same here in Salzburg, where in the, when was it, 1491 already, so 1 year before Christopher Columbus entered America, the farmers, they didn't know where to go in winter, because it was quite tough for them to carry around with their horse and carriages. So the city of Salzburg offered them the place to be, and it was the Cathedral Square. And this was the first time where there was a market over the winter time. And in those days, the first Christkindl or Christmas markets developed.
So why are these markets sometimes called a Christkindl market? Well, here's where it gets really interesting. Christkindl translates to Christ child. And in many parts of Europe, the Christ child is represented as an angel, the one who brings the gifts to the children at Christmas. Next, if you say Christkindl really fast, it kind of sounds like Kris Kringle, right? Well, that is exactly where we get the name Kris Kringle, a nickname for Santa Claus. Although Santa Claus actually comes from Saint Nicholas, but let's not get confused. So back to those Salzburg markets. It's a wonderful tradition for families, generation after generation.
People really come in and they remember last year, they remember like 10 years ago when they came here with the grandparents or great-grandparents. This is definitely something where people just remember history, think about the time when they were younger.
And for the young ones, Christmas is of course all about toys. So let's meet Thomas, the toy-making Santa of Salzburg.
This is actually a toy or kids' toy stall from Thomas Feldbacher. He's from a region quite far away from the city of Salzburg, but still belonging to the province of Salzburg. Okay. He really literally moves to the city of Salzburg during the time of the Christmas market.
So Thomas brings his toy factory to the Salzburg market every year. And he hand makes many of these traditional wooden toys.
You just you burn your name into it. Yep. And I personally think it's just a very nice memory with your kids or for your kids. So my little boy, he's 4.5 now. Every year he gets a toy from Thomas with his name on it.
Aww. And as a child, there is nothing better than looking forward to Christmas Day. Except here in Austria, children don't look forward to the morning of December 25th. As in many parts of Europe, families celebrate Christmas on the 24th, not the 25th, exchanging presents in the evening and then going to church together at midnight. But one tradition that is definitely the same in Austria as in America is decorating the tree. And here in the European Christmas markets, there are beautiful Christmas ornaments, from tiny glass angels to big, beautiful hand-painted blue ones.
There are sort of special editions every year. There are some motifs, like, for example, the Castle of Salzburg or the Cathedral of Salzburg. And there are families that come here for the last, more or less 40 years already. Because Maria is here from the very first beginning of the market.
That's lovely. How do I say beautiful in German?
Wunderschön.
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 Maria?
Yeah?
Maria, they say es wunderschön.
Es ist.
Ist wunderschön. Close. And there are many different shapes to those handmade Christmas ornaments, including the bell, which is instrumental to a darling Austrian Christmas tradition.
And the bell, which is very important for us on the 24th.
Why is that?
Because when the bell rings, the Christ child was here. And so all the kids are going crazy because usually they got kicked out of the living room so that mom or dad can sort of light up the Christmas tree. And then suddenly there is the bell, and then the Christ child was here.
He just secretly came in, left some gifts, and it's amazing that the kids never saw. From delicate little bells to booming horns, we go up above the Salzburg market to get curious about another Christmas market tradition. Wonderful trumpets and horns playing from the towers and balconies surrounding the market for the visitors below.
It's an Austrian tradition.
I would say Alpine, also in southern parts of Germany and Switzerland, but very much in Salzburg as well. Yes.
Excellent.
It's only the best musicians from Salzburg who are allowed to play here.
But the origins of this seemingly serene sound aren't so serene at all.
So being an Alpine tradition, does it go back to where they were on mountaintops, kind of playing to each other?
This type of music was literally actually to alarm the people. For example, right in the city of Salzburg or on the fortress, people who live here realize, there's something going on, we have to be careful.
Oh, that's amazing. Okay, so it was to alert people if the bad guys were coming or whatever the case may be, and now it's this beautiful Christmas tradition.
And just across from the market is an Austrian Christmas vault full of treasures. But we know the combination, so let's go inside. The Salzburger Weihnachtsmuseum is an incredible collection of Christmas knickknacks and traditions from German-speaking countries from about 1840 to 1940. And it's all thanks to one Christmas-loving woman. No, not Mrs. Claus, but a Mrs. Kloiber.
Mrs. Kloiber was gathering about 40 years. Yeah, and he was so impressed by the Christmas tree of her grandmother in her early childhood, and then she was gathering those wonderful.
It's amazing that these are preserved so well.
Yes,
it's incredible.
Yes. And some of them they found in America, in the States.
Oh, nice!
Yeah.
Including some very precious and very fragile paper advent calendars kept under glass for safekeeping.
This one is the oldest known to date advent calendar. It's like an advent clock. You put the clock hand every day 1 hour to the next.
Now, I don't know any German, so forgive me. I recognize Kinder for children.
For children.
What's the first word?
It's a Christmas clock.
Oh,
a Christmas clock for children.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So that's what that word means? Weihnachtsuhr?
Weihnachtsuhr.
Weihnachtsuhr.
Eine Weihnachtsuhr.
Yeah.
Für Kinder.
For Kinder.
Yeah.
That's lovely. Lots of Christmas and Christian imagery, from angels to crosses to nativity scenes. Although I don't remember seeing one of Snow White's dwarves being one of the 3 wise men.
The dwarfs, we have an area in Germany called the Erzgebirge.
Okay.
And they put many dwarfs in the scenes, and not so the Christian symbols. Because Erzgebirge, they were miners. Yeah? They lived.
Oh, right, like the
in
dwarves.
Yeah.
Oh, so that's what that's a symbol of. And then there are some decidedly non-dwarf-sized Christmas decorations here, too.
This is made in the Erzgebirge, in the mountain ore in Germany, for the festive light in the living room.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Do we know which year this was made or how
It's
old?
about 1900. Wow.
And next, instead of letters to Santa begging for tons of toys, German and Austrian children used to do something completely shocking. They wrote thank you letters to their parents.
To wish all the best and health
To their
the
parents.
parents, yes. It was common in the 18th and 19th century. But we forgot it now. They don't do it now.
I was going to
nowadays.
say, nowadays, kids,
No.
it's the opposite. You don't see them really being, that's a great tradition to bring
Yes.
back. But let's not get crazy here. Those darling little Lieblings of the past still asked for a present or two, but still differently than an American child would.
Children wrote to Christkind, yeah? And they put it in the window in the evening, and when it disappeared,
That means that Christkind came and has his letter.
Yes.
But how would the Christkind know the letter was for him? Can you read that for me in English or translate it in English?
an das liebe Christkind im Himmel. It's just to the lovely baby child in heaven.
In heaven.
In heaven.
Oh, so that would be the pre-printed envelope, and the children would put their letter in it?
Yeah, and it
Oh, that's
goes to
so
heaven.
sweet.
Yeah.
And another difference is that in America, we have Santa and the elves and the reindeer. But in Austria, the Christmas gift distribution system is handled by a few other characters.
Christkind is bringing the parcels in Austria and Germany on the 24th in the evening of the 24th. Christkind looks like an angel. In Austria and South Germany, Christkind comes. And in northern Germany, the Weihnachtsmann.
And who's the Weihnachtsmann?
The Weihnachtsmann helped the Christkind in the beginning.
Okay.
But then he went by himself to the children. And so he's a man, a strong man with a beard. And
he's a good guy.
He's
and
a good
carries
guy.
the gifts.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
good. Okay, good. Sound familiar? That good guy with the beard carrying all those gifts, well, he later became known as Santa Claus. And it's a good thing that Weihnachtsmann is a good guy, because there is a seriously bad guy associated with Christmas here in Austria, who we will meet later, whether we want to or not. Maybe if we sing a Christmas carol, we can keep the bad guys away. But not just any Christmas carol.
The Christmas carol Silent Night was first performed in 1818 in a small town near Salzburg. But it was actually written by a Salzburg priest named Joseph Mohr, and he was baptized right here at Salzburg Cathedral.
Silent Night was first performed on Christmas Eve in 1818 at St. Nicholas Parish Church in Obendorf, Austria. Later, it was performed for many of the royal families of Europe. Then it went on to become a favorite around the world and has been translated into more than 100 languages.
Two people created this lovely song, and it's first of all Joseph Mohr, the priest who wrote the lyrics in 1816 already. And 2 years later, he asked his friend Franz Xaver Gruber to compose the melody, and this is what made Silent Night. It's two people working together.
Often, Christmas concerts in local churches will include nativity scenes, complete with manger, sheep, ox, and donkeys. But I don't remember ever seeing a mouse in attendance.
There's a wonderful legend about a mouse chomping through an organ or something.
Exactly.
Yeah,
This
what's
is
that
in
story?
Obendorf. There's the legend, the mouse destroyed the organ, and this is the reason why you couldn't use the organ for the Christmas service, and then they had the idea to use the guitar. It's probably an urban legend, but it's a nice one, and the children love it.
So, according to that legend, that's why the original sheet music for Silent Night was written for the guitar. But what's even more curious is that you might get sleepy when you hear it.
There's many Christmas carols out there, but there's something about Silent Night when you hear it, especially if you're at a church service, and there's just sort of this calm that comes over the... What do you think it is about this particular song that resonates so well?
Well, I think no scholar and probably no one has the answer to this question. We know that their melody is quietly influenced by the Sicilian melodies for cradle songs.
Oh, a lullaby.
Lullaby.
Well, time to wake up and explore one more glorious and curious Christmas market here in Austria. And this one is supersized, from the number of red ornaments to counting down the days until Christkindl visits.
Here at the Hellbrunn Christmas Market, everything is larger than life. In fact, the entire facade of the palace is an advent calendar. I wonder how big the chocolates are when you open those windows.
But those aren't the only big numbers around here.
We are building up 700 of the trees. We decorate them with almost 10,000 of these red ornaments, 5 kilometers of lights, and I think the ambience and everything is very special.
It is very special.
But why is a Christmas market held here at Hellbrunn Palace?
Just to kind of put it into context, who lived in Hellbrunn Palace or who used Hellbrunn Palace originally?
400 years ago, Archbishop Marcus Didicus built it as a summer residence, and it was always like a palace of pleasure. And he never lived here. He just had parties over here.
Well, that's kind of nice then. So this is sort of carrying on that tradition.
Of course.
And here there are many traditional Austrian Christmas finds, like these spice bouquets, these Bronteigringe, these Nussstangrill, and these Kaiserschmarrn, which happen to be a favorite of Austrian Emperor Franz Joseph. And wait, are there non-food items here too?
This is a family from they're living in the mountains of Salzburg in the area, and they produce everything themselves.
And what is
Wollstadel is the combo.
Oh, say it again.
Wollstadel.
Wollstadel.
It's like a dialect word. It's like dialect.
Okay.
Wollstadel, yeah.
Wollstadel.
And they do all themselves. So you have these shoes for homes, and you have hats. They do everything themselves.
Because you have to keep warm when you're here
Of
in
course,
Salzburg.
here in Austria, you have to keep warm.
And there is one more Austrian Christmas tradition you will find here at the Christmas markets. But he's not very cuddly at all.
I have not heard of this creepy guy that's hanging out here in the river. Who's this guy over here?
Well, this is our Krampus.
Krampus. Okay.
Yeah, he's going with the St. Nicholas. So on the 6th of December, the Krampus and the St. Nicholas are visiting families at home and going to the kids. And if they were nice, they get little treats, chocolates and nuts. And if they were naughty, they get the Krampus.
And kids, trust me, you do not want to get the Krampus. The origins of Krampus are believed to date to pre-Christian times, and by the 17th century were firmly embedded into the Christmas traditions of Central and Eastern Europe.
Yikes!
Krampus is a fictional character, well, at least I hope he's fictional. He hangs out with St. Nicholas and swats the bad children with birch branches or sometimes puts them in a basket or sack and carts them off. You know, depending on his mood. So, you'd better be good for goodness sake.
Is he half beast, half human?
He's
What
like
is
a
he?
demon, and he's very scary, and the fur, the costume is a fur.
Okay.
And the masks are all hand scarfed of wood. And it's like a tradition that if you have one in your family, one of these masks, you pass it on from generation to generation.
Oh, what a lovely Yuletide tradition, dressing up in a costume like this to scare the daylights out of your children year after year.
He's a little
I can
scary.
remember it was like in my childhood, like this.
Describe your childhood with this Krampus around. Were you traumatized?
I was always very scared of Krampus. I'm even now, because they have these huge, when they, on the 6th they're walking around with these huge bells on their back.
Okay.
And if you hear those bells, you know what's going on and you know what's going to happen. And so on the 6th, 5th and 6th December, they're everywhere around, and every girl and women, they're just running.
So Austrians everywhere, when they hear a jingle bell, normally that's a positive thing. You hear a bell, you're like, oh God, it's Krampus. It's Krampus.
Kind of, it's
What
like
do
a
I do?
Krampus bell, yeah.
Oh, I love
Very
it.
scary.
Okay, well, I hope you feel better now. I hope you know that Krampus isn't real.
fine.
Sorry.
Or is he? So, from a Kaiserschmarrn to a Linzerschnitte to a Bronteigringe, to wooden stalls lined up one after another, full of Christmas toys and Christmas joys that make up entire Christmas markets, some held in the same spot for more than 600 years. And those markets are often called Christkindl markets for the Christ child, represented as an angel who brings toys to children throughout Europe, which gives us the name Christkringle, who brings the toys to the American children. Which leads us to even more Austrian traditions, like which day you celebrate on and to whom you write your Christmas letters. But the Christmas music is something we all have in common, from A Silent Night and A Hungry Little Mouse, to the horns played up on high that no longer warn the villagers below, who now happily warm up with a mulled wine or punch, or a paper cone filled with roasted nuts, or a Linzerschnitte or two. As they count down the days to Christmas with an Advent calendar so fragile and dear, to one as big as a palace, to a seriously sinister Saint Nick sidekick. I mean, come on, Santa, can't you get some better friends? Austrian Christmas traditions have so much to be curious about.
Thank you for joining us on our educational journey, and hopefully now you're even more curious about the who, what, where, why, when, and how of Austria's Christmas markets. As they say here in Austria, Frohe Weihnachten. Bye.